My pleasure to yield at this time 5 minutes to the distinguished gentleman from Texas, Mr. Green, the author of this legislation.
Gentleman from Texas is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it's always an honor to stand in the well of the House and have an opportunity to advocate on behalf of the constituents of the 9th Congressional District. Today is no exception. Mr. Speaker, I'm honored to stand here in support of bipartisan legislation that encourages law enforcement to use body cameras. This legislation is legislation that I'm proud to say has received a good deal of support and a good deal of consideration and deliberation. I'd like to thank the Speaker of the House, Mr. Boehner, for his assistance in bringing this legislation forward. And of course, the Honorable Nancy Pelosi must be given kudos as well. I thank her for allowing the legislation to come forward and assisting. The Majority Leader, Mr. Hoyer, the whip, used to be, the whip, Mr. Hoyer. I want to thank him because we had a conversation concerning this legislation. And of course, the chairperson of the Judiciary Committee, the Honorable Bob Goodlatte, he and I have had an opportunity to talk through this legislation, and I'm eternally grateful for the consideration that you've given, sir, and I thank you. I also would like to thank the Dean of the House of Representatives, the Honorable John Conyers. He has been here on so many occasions when legislation that is exceedingly important has been passed upon and has been a voice on all of these issues through the years. And I'm proud to say that I had an opportunity to speak to him about this legislation. Of course, I want to thank Mr. Ted Poe of Texas. He and I came to Congress together, and we've worked together. This is a piece of legislation that he was the first to sign on to, HRES 295. And Mr. Emanuel Cleave of Missouri. He and I have worked together to shepherd this from the very beginning. And he is still a part of it. He is not here tonight, but he is with us on this legislation. And I'm proud to say he's a friend and he's been a partner throughout the effort to bring this legislation to the floor of the House. Mr. Lutemeyer, he has been a friend in this, and Mr. Clay of Missouri, Mr. Yoder of Kansas, and of course, Ms. Clark of New York, all friends and all supportive of this resolution. Mr. Speaker, this resolution, as has been indicated, is the beginning. I don't see it as the end of a process. I see it as more of a preamble with the Constitution to follow. I see it as a lawyer might see an opening statement with a closing statement yet to come. And of course, as a Christian, I see it as a part of Genesis with many revelations yet to come. It is a good first step, and it's a good step in the right direction. I don't see it as the end of the process. But I do want to commend and thank those who have helped us to get to this point. And I would cite now, if I may, a Justice Department report. This report, styled Police Officer Body-Worn Cameras, found that body-worn cameras increase transparency. People have the opportunity to see what actually took place. It makes a difference because this will increase police legitimacy. Officers don't have to get into disputes about what actually occurred. The empirical evidence is there by way of the camera's eye. It will improve citizen and police behavior. Once the camera is on, and once people know that it's on, that's both citizens and peace officers, their behavior tends to be adjusted such that we get better results. It will improve effective prosecution. This is evidence that can be introduced into court. And when it is introduced, it can help effectuate positive results. Another study, a study from the University of Cambridge, its Institute of Criminology, after a 12-month study, concluded that body-worn cameras found 50% reduction in the use of force as a result of body cameras, a 50% reduction in use of force, a 90% reduction in complaints against peace officers as a result of body cameras being utilized. And of course, there's this final study that I'll cite in Rialto, California. This report from Rialto, California indicates that after 1 year of use of body cameras, there was a 60% reduction in the use of force and an 88% reduction in complaints against peace officers. The evidence is in, it is clear that these body cameras do provide an opportunity for us to have the transparency we need, for us to provide legitimacy for both peace officers and citizenry, but more importantly, to reduce the complaints that we see emanating from scenes that are disputed. May I have one additional minute, ma'am?
Give the gentleman an additional 2 minutes.
Thank you very much. As I was indicating, thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I was indicating, we see a reduction in complaints. Mr. Speaker, as we view the many incidents that have occurred around the country, there is no question that there is a divide. I believe that these cameras, these body cameras, can span the chasm across the divide and make a difference in the perception that we have in the way our police and our community interact with each other. So I am proud to be a sponsor, and I'm proud to have the co-sponsors that we have. I'm proud that the chairperson of the Judiciary Committee has signed on to this, that the ranking member of the Judiciary Committee is on board, and I want to thank my colleague from Houston, Texas, the Honorable Sheila Jackson Lee, who has served on the Judiciary Committee for many, many years, and I am most appreciative that she, too, finds favor with this piece of legislation. I'm honored that she is on the floor tonight to shepherd it through, and I pray that my colleagues all will support what I believe to be a piece of legislation that can span the chasm between the police and the community in a most positive way. I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. The gentleman